Hello, and welcome back to another Let Me Live with your host, Liv Moods. And we are in the thick of the NFL season, which means we have a lot to talk about. We're going to do a little bit of NFL recap for week one. What did you miss? We're going to talk about some betting stuff. I want us to get more involved in betting together. I want to grow a community. So that being said, I want to talk to you a little bit about an idea that I had. Maybe gauge your interest and see how you would feel. I think oftentimes there's a lot of people that are interested in diving headfirst into sports betting or love sports but know it on a very basic generic level, and that's what this show is going to be about. We're going to give real, raw, and honest hot takes, opinions, break down the NFL Sunday slate, and hopefully teach you a thing or two. But in the same breath, I would like to say, I want you to teach me things. I have worked in sports betting now for about 3 years. I give out picks every week, and the trolls have a lot to say about which side of the game I'm on, the player props that I like. And so now it's time for you guys to put your money where your mouth is. I'm hoping that we can build a community of sports betting. Maybe eventually we have a fantasy league together. I'm hoping to start a broadcast channel within the Instagram where you guys can go in there every week, drop your picks. You can rate my picks. We can build parlays together and have a really good time. And if you're a person sitting there listening to this saying, I don't really know sports betting, but I want to be involved, you will learn about sports betting on this show. I can promise you that. So let's get into, first and foremost, the week one recap of the NFL. So lots happens on a Sunday slate. Quarterback performances, rookie first-time appearances, which defenses are the best, but we're going to take it from more of a fun angle. Let's start with probably one of the more talked about things that happened yesterday, which is Tyreek Hill's touchdown celebration. If you're wondering, hey Liv, all I'm seeing is a picture of Tyreek Hill with his hands behind his back and Jalen Waddle behind him. Well, there's a backstory, okay? Tyreek Hill, the morning of his football game, okay? The Miami Dolphins played on the morning slate, which my time is 11 a.m. Mountain Time. In Miami, that's about 2 p.m. Is it? No, it's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Tyreek Hill, a block away from the arena, gets pulled over for a traffic violation. The rumor is he was speeding pretty fast. Maybe he was running late to the game. I don't know. But we had fans taking videos outside of their car window as they drove by saying, oh my gosh, they got reeked. Tyreek Hill on the ground, hands behind his back. Probably a few too many officers, one of which is on administrative leave right now while they investigate the situation. Tyreek Hill, after the game, when asked about the incident, kind of insinuated that it's a good thing I'm Tyreek Hill. Could have been a lot worse. So it sounds like maybe there was some police abusing their power. Tyreek Hill did make sure to mention that he has the most respect for police officers. I don't know how it was handled. I was not there. It doesn't feel fair for me to speak on that situation, but he makes it to the game. Believe it or not, he was detained. It sounds like some of his teammates may have also been detained because they pulled over to check and see what was going on, which I love. I love that his teammates had his back, if that is a true statement. So to be detained 1 second and have it all over the internet, and then you're on the field bawling out the next, it's only right that when you score a touchdown, because you are arguably the best receiver in the league, you put your hands behind your back and your teammate Jalen Waddle pretends to be putting you in handcuffs to celebrate your touchdown. Tyreek Hill, I mean, probably the perfect person to have that touchdown celebration, but very, very crazy to have his morning start that way ahead of their matchup. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing, it's another season and it's our year is already filling up my timeline, okay? One game in and the Dallas Cowboys are already convinced it's their year. This is the 28th consecutive year we have heard this statement fly out of their mouths where nothing happens in the postseason. I am not going to let myself get excited, and I would advise you to not overreact based on what you saw. Okay?
3rd and 5, pressure right in Prescott's face, letting it go. He got it! The touchdown is caught by Brandon Cole.
Based on their performance yesterday. However, I encourage you not to overreact. There's a lot of different things that will change from now until week 8, until week 18. There's so many things that can happen. One of the things that I had to deal with yesterday was a bet that I placed. Panthers plus 3.5. Feel free to laugh. If you don't know sports betting, basically what happened was I thought and put money on the bet thinking that the Panthers would lose by less than 3 points. Well, the Panthers actually lost by, I believe it was 37 points. Yeah. Not a great performance, which leads me to my question. One of my biggest week 1 takeaways. Is Bryce Young going to be one of the biggest busts in the NFL season? Let me explain before you get upset. I love Bryce Young. Obviously, I thought that what we saw in preseason from him was going to translate in week 1. I bet on this team. I thought that it would be a good and smart bet. It was not. And you're probably thinking, well, who were they playing? Maybe they were playing a really solid team. They weren't. They were playing the Saints, okay? The Saints are not a team that you should worry about going to the Super Bowl this year. They're just not. Bryce Young, Sugar Bowl MVP, Manning Award finalist, second team All-American by PFF and USAT, second team All-SEC by AP, Heisman Trophy, Maxwell Award, Davey O'Brien Award, Manning Award, okay? The list goes on. Not to mention, Young went 23-4 in 2 seasons as Alabama's starting quarterback, okay? Winning 2 bowl games and putting up more than 8,300 passing yards with 80 passing touchdowns against 12 interceptions. Oh, and he added another 7 touchdowns on the ground that he physically ran into the end zone himself, okay? The accolades from his time at Alabama, the list goes on and on and on. What we're seeing this year, and I know you're probably thinking, Liv, you just told us not to overreact. You're right. But this is now the second season that we are watching this Panthers team. And again, they could turn things around. It's only week 1. We have a lot more football to watch with this team, and maybe they figure it out. But what we saw yesterday against an average team was horrific. They could barely make it down the field. This Panthers team looked more unkept and more disorganized than they did last season. And I didn't think that was possible. I watched Bryce Young a little bit in the preseason and felt like, okay, we might be making some strides forward here. Panthers fans can take a deep breath and maybe there's some hope after all. The Panthers might be worse than I thought they were last year. So Bryce Young, I do think, is in a position where this could be one of the biggest busts in the NFL. First overall draft pick. Like I said, the accolades I just read off are insane. And yet, nothing to show for it on the professional level. On the highest level of football, nothing to show for it. So I'm obviously disappointed because I bet on his team. I would love to know from you, is Bryce Young going to be one of the biggest busts in the NFL? You tell me. My final takeaway, of course, as a Denver Broncos fan, is that they look eerily similar to the last decade where we have 0 offense, we can't get in the end zone. The Broncos had 2 safeties, 3 field goals, and 1 late touchdown by our rookie quarterback running it into the end zone. It was a hot mess. But my question is, how much longer, how many more losing seasons do Broncos fans have to endure before Sean Payton's ass is on the hot seat, right? It's easy to blame Russell Wilson, okay? He's a goofball. He's not always locked in. He drives people insane. Former teammates have come out saying the dude rubs me the wrong way. We saw what his time with the Denver Broncos looked like. It was a hot mess. But now I'm wondering, okay, Sean Payton, you found a rookie quarterback that you like. He was named a captain. You speak very highly of him. If the Broncos have another losing season, what does that mean for Sean Payton? Or what should it mean for Sean Payton is a better question. All of that to say leads me into my next segment, which is our hot take segment. Of course, if you have been here before, if you've watched Let Me Live, if you know Liv Moods, I've got to have a hot take. And my hot take is this. Starting quarterbacks in the NFL should be required to play at least 1 full game in the preseason. And now, maybe we do it from a minutes perspective where they have to play a certain amount of minutes so you can spread those across the 3 or 4 games you have in the preseason. I don't have a system yet developed in my brain for how this would work. But all I know is the week 1 quarterback play that we saw was hot effing garbage. Hot garbage. I would love for these players to be required to get some of those kinks out in the preseason when it doesn't really matter so that they can then perform a little bit better, make it a little more entertaining for us in week 1. Now, I know the concern across the board is injuries, making sure their bodies are okay, not wanting to lose a starting quarterback in the preseason when the game doesn't matter because they get injured. I understand that, but this is also football. Rub some dirt on it, okay? Let's toughen up. That is the game of football. I wish we had a few more of those old school coaches with an old school way of thinking, which is like, it's football. Man up. you're playing. I'm sorry. I don't believe in the whole rest your body, sit, princess treatment. I don't agree with it. I wish we had more coaches that thought that way. But I need quarterbacks to get some of their kinks out in the preseason. You're not too cool for preseason. I need you to play because what we see in week 1 is just hot garbage quarterback play across the board, okay? There were very few quarterbacks that passed over 300 passing yards. It just didn't look great. It was very boring to watch. It felt like I was drinking a flat soda. I want no more of it, okay? So I would love to see some quarterback play from our starting quarterbacks in the preseason. That's the time to get your kinks out so that by week 1, we're watching some real football, okay? Finally, this last segment, a little bit of betting education for you, okay? Betting 101, because like I said, I want to grow a community. I want us to be able to tail each other, build parlays, have anytime touchdown scores that we're sweating together. So, betting education. My biggest piece of advice following week 1, of course, don't overreact. What you saw in week 1, example, the Bengals looked terrible. Do I think that Joe Burrow and company will look terrible all season long? No, I don't, because the Bengals habitually start their seasons looking pretty messy and playing pretty ugly football. They do that often. Don't overreact. But even more so from a sports betting perspective, do not try to outsmart Vegas. Don't do it, okay? And the only reason I'm saying this is there were so many different lines, whether it be the total amount of points that were scored, the spreads, you name it, that were so psychotically, creepily accurate by Vegas that it does make you wonder, what the hell do they know that I do not, okay? Let's take the Broncos game versus Seattle. The spread was 5.5. For those of you that don't know spreads, here it is. If you bet on the Seahawks minus 5.5, you're saying they have to win by more than 5.5 points. And you're probably thinking, you can't score a half point in football. Correct. So they need to win by at least 6 points. Okay? If you bet the Broncos plus 5.5, you're saying the Broncos have to lose by less than 5. Because again, you can't have a half point in football. So you're saying that the window between the loser and the winner is by this many points, 5.5. If you bet on the Seahawks, they've got to be over that number. If you bet on the Broncos, they've got to be between that number. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you're following. But this is how smart Vegas is. How the hell did Vegas know that the Seahawks would win by 6? If you took the Seahawks minus 5.5, you got lucky. Not lucky. You made the right bet. But how the hell did they nail that number? How? If it were me making lines, I'd say, okay, you either win or lose by a field goal or a touchdown, right? Because there's crazy things happen. This Broncos team, y'all, had 2 safeties. 4 points, very random number in the world of football, but they had 2 safeties. Vegas is smart. So my advice for you as we enter week 2 is don't try to outsmart Vegas. Your feelings will get hurt. I promise you they will. The Seahawks won by 6. The line was set at 5.5. Again, don't try to understand it. I've been working in the sports betting world for 3 years, and I still don't get how Vegas understands mathematically, statistically, how to land those numbers. And they're not always right. Another example is the Panthers. I took them thinking they would lose by less than 3 and they lost by 37. There you go, okay? So they're not always right, but sometimes they get so dangerously close that I'm like, what do they know that we do not? I don't understand it. But don't try to outsmart Vegas. If you look at a line for week 2 and you think to yourself, this looks too good to be true, it probably is. Okay? It probably is. The sportsbook has thought about things that you haven't thought of for a second. They know where to put those numbers and they know how to get you, okay? So really, truly, take your time, take a deep breath. If you see a number that you love so much, don't fall for it so easily. That is my advice as we enter week 2. But like I said, we are going to fire up this betting group chat. It's going to be a massive betting group chat led by me on the Baller Alert socials, where we're going back and forth with each other. We're tailing each other's picks. We're flaming each other's picks. It's going to be a safe space where we can basically talk trash and hopefully make some money and cash some tickets. That's my goal, okay? But there's a lot of trolls in the comment sections way too often that are going, I hate this take, or I hate this bet. Okay, smarty pants, drop yours in the comments and I'll tell you, because it's not that easy. but I want to grow a community where we can have a safe space to mess up and to cash some tickets together. If you're down, let me know, because I'm very excited. This has been the first, episode of Let Me Live as we enter the NFL season, and I am so excited to do this every week with you guys. We're going to have plenty to talk about. We're going to have plenty of tickets that we're placing and bets that we're hoping to cash, and I can't wait to do it alongside you. So thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Liv Moods, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Let Me Live.